This is Michele Jaco, host of the Inside the Chapters podcast for the novel When I See the Wolf Ride. And here's a recap of what happened in Chapter 9 of Book 1. Art and Hershey race to get to the airbase before Zap can trigger explosions from the bombs planted there. Meanwhile, in a desperate attempt to save the orphanage before the Viet Cong reach it, Lee and Captain Avigdor take Art's rubber raft down the river. But after encountering enemy fire in rapids, they are thrown into the water and separated. Captain Avigdor makes it to shore, but Lee is stranded in the river. He manages to find a large floating log and lets the river carry him toward the orphanage. From the river, he finally sees the huts of the orphanage.
Then there they were, the small grass huts the children lived in. As I started to jump off the log and swim to them, I saw Viet Cong soldiers with guns standing in front of the huts. I was too late.
Welcome to the audio production of the novel When I See the Wolf Ride, Book 1, Chapter 10. Copyright 2024 by Jeffrey Lee Neal. Read by the author. And now, here is Chapter 10 of When I See the Wolf Ride, Book 1.
Chapter 10. In God's Hands. From the Bible. Today, you are moving forward to do battle with your enemies. Do not be faint-hearted. Do not fear or tremble or be terrified because of them, for the Lord your God goes with you to fight on your behalf against your enemies to give you victory. Deuteronomy 20, verses 3 through 4. Even though the log was floating, my heart was sinking. The soldiers outside the huts didn't notice me as I drifted by. I could not see the women or the children. They might be dead. I let go of the log and began to swim. Fortunately, the current was not as strong as it had been earlier. I could easily swim right to the shore. Dense brush covered the shoreline here, and it took some effort to pull myself onto the ground. It would have been great to have Wolf with me at that moment. He would have climbed a tree to get a better look. I worked my way back to get close enough to hear their voices. Then I looked for a tree. I guess being desperate helps you react in these situations. I seemed to be able to climb this tree easier than I had climbed others in the past. Maybe Wolf was with me. Maybe there had been something to that moment when we became brothers. In the clearing in front of the huts, I counted 6 armed men. 2 were standing guard, and the other 4 were eating. Then, a moment of hope. Mama T came out with more food for the men who were eating. If Mama T was still alive, maybe the children were too. Even if they were alive, I was unarmed, exhausted, and sopping wet. I needed a plan. When you have nothing else, reconnaissance can be your best friend. For the rest of the day, I made my way through the forest, trying to see what and who was there. This group guarding the orphans' home seemed to be a part left behind from a larger group about a half-mile away. The larger squadron of about 20 men probably felt safer camping inland for the evening. They had 2 vehicles, a small Jeep and a larger truck. In the back of the truck, I could see weapons, rifles, and a grenade launcher. I could realistically travel on foot about 3 to 5 miles from this location to get more reconnaissance. But which direction? And how far should I go? There was a chance these Viet Cong soldiers would take pity on the women and the children. Maybe they would leave them. There was also the chance that they would kill everyone. In this war, anything was possible. I made my way north. If there were more Viet Cong on the way, they would come from that direction. After about an hour, my reconnaissance paid off. I spotted another group of Viet Cong soldiers approaching on a small road. Another Jeep and a larger truck. This looked to be about the size of the first group I encountered. As evening approached, so did clouds. A storm was coming. I guess I really needed sleep, but I couldn't let that happen right now. It appeared the second squadron of Viet Cong were going to end up camping about a mile north of the first one. I heard thunder. I could feel drops of rain. The monsoon season would probably earn its name tonight. If the Viet Cong were planning to kill Mama T and the children, they would probably do it tomorrow before they left. I had a decision to make. Fight, or stay low and hope for the best. I couldn't take the chance that they might kill the children and the women. One unarmed man wouldn't be able to stop it. I made my way to the second Viet Cong camp. It was raining much harder now, more thunder. To save the women and the children, I needed a truck. And to get a truck, I would need a diversion. I had an outrageous idea. The downpour had now grown into a huge thunderstorm with lightning, ear-piercing thunder, winds, and a hurricane of rain. It was late in the evening now. Most of the soldiers of the first camp were under their tents trying to stay warm. One man was standing guard, but he couldn't see anything because of the weather. He finally bent down on his knees because of the blowing wind and rain. It was easy to sneak up behind him and disable him with the rock I found. I took his rifle and pistol, making my way to the truck. Zap had shown me how to hotwire a vehicle during our days at camp. So odd that my enemy was helping me survive now. It worked exactly as Zap had shown me. I knew I wouldn't have much time once they heard the truck start. I jammed it into gear and took off on the small road next to the camp. I heard gunfire behind me, but it faded as I left. After about 5 minutes, I stopped to see what was in the back of the truck. The rifle and the bazooka with 2 rockets were still there. In the truck's cab, as I got the pistol, the rifle, and the bazooka ready, I heard myself saying a quick prayer. Somehow, God, if you're there, don't let me screw this up. It was a miracle I had survived this day so far. I had never really believed in miracles before. So maybe the God I'd never fully believed in existed too. I prayed like he did. I threw the truck into gear and headed for the second enemy camp. Because of low visibility and the noise of the storm, I was almost upon them before I stopped and jumped out. A guard came running toward the truck. I dropped him with the pistol. I could see the others in the camp getting up after they heard the gunshot. I took the bazooka as quickly as I could and shot one directly at them. The explosion blew bodies up in the air. I couldn't see much, but I could hear them screaming. I took the rifle and fired at them. I heard them returning gunfire. A couple of bullets hit the truck. One hit the window next to my head. Jumping back in the driver's seat and throwing the truck into reverse, I turned around, now headed for the first enemy camp. I slowed down as I heard the gunfire beginning to fade with distance. I had a moment of terror that this might not work. Then I saw the headlights of their Jeep and their truck. They were pursuing me, despite the storm. I floorboarded the truck and headed toward the first enemy camp. I could hear gunfire behind me as they were giving chase. Then in front of me, I could see the lights of the Jeep from the first enemy camp approaching. They were shooting. I could hear the clanking of metal on metal as bullets were hitting the hood of the truck. Next, they struck the windshield. Glass was cracking. I ducked down and turned the truck to the left to miss their Jeep. The gunfire from the enemy behind me hit the enemy in front of me, and then I heard the crash of the 2 Jeeps colliding head-on. Screams. There were still gunshots. A truck from the second group drove around the wrecked Jeeps and continued to pursue me. It only took about 30 seconds for me to reach the first enemy camp. It seemed filled with men shooting at me. My windshield had taken heavy fire and shattered. I ducked down and kept driving. The men in the truck behind me were firing at the men from camp, who were firing at me. It appeared no one could tell who was an enemy in the hurricane-like conditions. I kept going. I could hear gunfire, explosions, and a lot of yelling behind me amidst the thundering noise of the storm. It didn't take long to get to Mama T's. The men guarding them were gone. I ran into the hut with a pistol. Mama T, Lee, and the children screamed when I rushed into the hut. Although the roof was leaking, the 32 children were alive, huddled together with Mama T and Lee, who had gotten up to shield them. "I'm not going to hurt you. It's me, Lee Dunham, Captain Avigdor's friend." Dung came running out of the group to me, crying.
"Dad! Dad!"
I picked him up and hugged him. "I told you I would be back." Mama T was not happy to see me.
"You must leave. They'll kill you."
I put Dung down, but he continued to hug me. Right now they're killing each other, but when they realize what's happened, they'll be back to kill us all. I've got a truck. We have to get the children out now.
We can't leave. The storm is terrible. I have to protect the children.
I took her by her shoulders, bringing my face close to hers. In that moment, I remembered her Christianity. I swear to you, by the holy name of Jesus Christ, that I will get you and every one of these children to safety. She was crying now, terrified at this decision. I lowered my voice, looking into her eyes. Captain Avigdor trusted me to save these children. Will you? She nodded, turning to the other woman and the children.
Come, we are leaving now. Take what you can.
I saw Captain Avigdor's daughter near the front, terrified and crying. I took Dung over to her and knelt down to them. Do you remember the bravery of the Cherokee warrior? He nodded. Well, now I need you to be brave like the Cherokee warrior. Can you do that? He nodded again. Take this girl's hand. Protect her as I get everyone on the truck out there. Don't leave her side. He nodded, taking her hand, which seemed to calm her down. I got up and with the lady's help started moving the children into the back of the covered truck through the torrent of rain. It only took minutes, but it seemed like hours. I knew the battle could reach us at any moment. Mama T got the last child in the back and then climbed into the truck's cab.
It will be dangerous up here. You should be in the back. I should drive. Do you even know your way out of here?
She had a great point. No, ma'am, I sure don't. Please keep your head down if we run into these guys. I jammed the truck into gear and we started out. We could hear gunfire.
That's not thunder.
She pointed ahead.
Keep going. There's another road. We've got to get to it.
I was going fast. I couldn't afford to miss it.
There!
I took the truck into a sharp turn. The children in the back screamed as the truck hit some brush in the turn, but we made it. The gunfire behind us faded as I sped up the old muddy road. We raced up the road despite low visibility. The rain was letting up, and the beams from the truck's lights were revealing more of the road ahead. The gas gauge showed empty. If that was right, we would be stranded in moments. There's not a lot of gas left in this truck. Do you know of any place we could get more?
I have no idea. We are in God's hands now.
Then her old face managed a weak smile as she put her hand gently on my arm.
So are you. And I appreciate the risks you took to save my children.
I whispered, our children. Adrenaline kept me going, but I was approaching over 24 hours with no sleep. She could see I was having trouble staying awake.
You are exhausted.
I can't stop. For all I know, they're right behind us. I slapped myself as hard as I could to stay awake. Talk to me. Tell me anything. Just keep talking. Don't let me waver. As she was speaking, she became my mother.
I've been watching you. You've done your best to save these women and children.
I couldn't save you. I heard myself saying the words. It was strange, but I was long past the "what are you doing here, how did you get here" questions. It seemed right that Mom was sitting there next to me in this moment.
It was not your job to save me, but you know this isn't over. There is another challenge ahead. You've got to be stronger. You can't quit yet. You've got to look out.
I felt the steering wheel spin, and I slammed on the brakes. Mama T grabbed the wheel. In front of us, the road had washed out, becoming a raging stream. Another few feet, and the whole truck would have been carried away. My worst fear was now a reality. We were stranded in darkness. Going back was certain death. We were out of food, out of gas, with the enemy pursuing us. Wasn't it only a matter of time until they came up this road? Mama T was weeping. The children were crying, some screaming.
You meant well, but you have killed us all. We might have had a chance if you left us alone.
I would not let it end like this. Well, no one's dead yet. She didn't deserve that, but I was far too gone to apologize. I gave her the pistol. Protect them with this if you have to.
I will not use a gun.
Will you let a child die? Fire it over someone's head. Use it as a threat if you have to. Just don't give up. Then I was weeping. It's all I have left to give you now. I got out of the truck, taking the rifle and the bazooka with me.
Where are you going?
I stopped, looking toward the woods. Hopefully they all killed each other. If they didn't and they come after us, they'll be coming up this road. I'll be there to stop them. The weapons were heavy. Carrying them exhausted me. I thought about saying goodbye to Dung, but decided against it. I wanted him to have some hope. I didn't. I made my way down the muddy road as best I could. There was very little light, but my eyes had adapted. The rain had stopped now. I could not hear any gunfire. For what seemed like minutes, there was only the sound of my boots sloshing through the mud and insects in the dense brush around the road. Then, ever so faintly, I could hear it. The sound of a truck coming, getting louder. I had one rocket remaining. I got the bazooka on my shoulder, ready to fire. Now I could see the truck headlights snaking through the trees toward the curve in front of me. I would wait until the last moment. I had to make this shot count. Gunfire. There was an unbearable, sharp pain in my arm. As my body reacted to the shock, something hit my head. More intense pain. More gunfire. Now one hit my left leg. Burning pain. The bazooka and I fell to the ground like loose wooden planks from a fence. The darkness became brighter. Something like a yellow or golden hue. I heard more gunshots as the vehicle approached. I knew I was hallucinating. I could hear the sounds of my own rifle firing back at them. It was impossible to get my body to move. I must have been helplessly flailing around on the ground, like a fish out of water. I couldn't tell whether it was the pain slowing me down or something else. Was I dying? I had to get to the rocket launcher before death took me. I saw a large hand pick it up. The man's face glowed against the lights of the approaching truck. He fired the rocket directly at the rumbling truck engine. It exploded on impact. I could feel the heat as I laid there, staring at the man. Just staring. Before me was the Cherokee warrior, the hero Wolf had described to Dung. Adorned in a golden headband, he laid the bazooka next to me, his face illuminated only by the flames of the burning truck. It was Wolf's face.
You have saved the women and children. You saved them all.
I was weeping again. I couldn't save you, Wolf. He smiled.
That was not your job.
He was holding my rifle in his other hand. You were shooting the rifle too? He set it down next to the bazooka.
It was you shooting.
He was grinning as he turned to walk away. He glanced back at me once more.
I was never here.
I looked toward the burning truck. I could see 4 men peacefully walking away from it through the flames. Then I saw Mom.
You did not quit. You were selfless. Jesus honors that. I always taught you that Jesus honors that.
Dead people all around me. I had to be dead. But if this was heaven, it was really odd. I still felt a lot of pain, and it all seemed unstable. The world was moving in weird ways. I had the sense that this moment, whatever it was, would be brief. So I started blurting out questions. Will I see God? Can I see Dad? Did the kids make it? Then Dung came up to me, right in my face. Captain Avigdor's little girl was behind him, both of them smiling. I started to weep. If they were here, I had failed.
You back! You save us, Dad! You save everybody!
Behind him, I could see Mama T, Captain Avigdor, Art, Hershey, and the other children. Mom and the Cherokee warrior were standing there too. Mom gave me the sweetest smile.
You'll see God. You'll see him for the rest of your life, if you look.
With that, she walked away. I noticed a bag of clear liquid hanging from a metal rod with a plastic tube feeding into my arm. The Cherokee warrior whispered something into Dung's ear, then looked me over, gave me a nod of approval, and walked away. Captain Avigdor came to my side, putting his arms around his daughter and Dung.
We thought we'd lost you.
Now I understood my surroundings. We were in a large aircraft. That's why it felt unstable and moving. We were in the air. I was on a medical cot.
Everyone made it out alive because of you. All the children. And Dung told me how you made him promise to protect my little girl.
I was trying to speak, but my voice wasn't there. I finally strained out the words. Where are we going? The captain smiled, putting his hand on my shoulder.
We're going home.
That concludes Chapter 10. We invite you next to read the PDF or listen to Chapter 11, entitled Treasure in the Ruins. We also invite you to listen to our podcast for Chapter 10, in which Michele Jaco talks with Jeff Neal about the story, the characters, and the symbolic elements within the chapter. Music for this production was licensed from the Smart Sum collection, and cover art was created from Adobe stock images. Some voice work was enhanced by AI technology from 11 Labs.